Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back into the 143. We are coming at you live. This is Under Review.
Episode number 32.
As it is in college, it's late, but we are not tired because we are hyped to bring you the new episode.
Absolutely not.
This topic today was specially requested by Dr. Stephen Chumley, one of our valued listeners. And it's about the NIL deal, the name, image, likeness around college football, how that's impacted the game, and how it will impact the future. We will unload our thoughts and opinions on that here in a second. But let's kick the episode off. Why don't we, Nick?
Let us.
With the stat of the week, brought to you by our sponsor,
as per the usual,
Andrew's Logistics. This stat is about Kevontae Turpin, your new Dallas Cowboy, former USFL MVP. The stat is, in the last preseason game against the Chargers, Kevontae Turpin touched the ball 3 times. 2 of those times, he took it to the house for a touchdown. That's 2 for 3. That's a pretty good stat. Good job, Kevontae. Bring that into the regular season for us, please.
I believe it makes it pretty obvious who our player of the week is. It is obviously Kevontae Turpin. Like Joseph said, he only touched the ball 3 times. Okay? The first time that he touched it, it was a 98-yard kickoff return for a touchdown.
Turned on those Jets.
The Chargers kicked a field goal. They're feeling pretty hot. They're feeling pretty hype, right? They're up 3-0, and then boom. Here comes Kevontae Turpin with the Jets, as it were. Returns it back to the hizzy for 6. And then he also, later in the game, returned a punt for 86
when you thought he couldn't
yards.
do it again.
That's right. Do we possibly have the next Devin Hester on the Dallas Cowboys?
I would say we do, and I think that it is a glimmer of hope for Cowboys fans because we have been ravaged
We got
this
to see
offseason.
him trash the Chargers JV squad, so we'll see how that goes in the regular season.
Here's what I think, though. I think kickoff returns and punt returns and stuff, it's pretty much similar in like regular season and preseason. Like,
is it special teams?
It's special teams players, so I definitely think you could see.
I would hope so. I
think we could see at least 1, maybe 2 touchdowns from him this season on a special teams play. That's what I think. Great job, Kevontae Turpin. Can't wait to see you in the regular season. Hope you do some great things for us. Now let's jump into our content for this week. The name, image, likeness deal for college football.
Very big topic right now, just in general, because the big thing is that players can finally make money in college.
And can they make money?
Brings up the question, should they actually get paid? And obviously, people have their opinions.
They do, and as do we. Obviously, ours is fact. Ours is truth. But, Nick, why don't you give them a little bit of background about what the NIL actually is right now?
So it stands for name, image, likeness. So essentially, that means that these players can be sponsored, and in that way, that is how they make money. So in turn, these college athletes are finally being able to get paid. And my question to you, Mr. Penn, is do you see this negatively or positively impacting the game? You can be neutral because
let's just say
I am not completely 1,000% sure on my position.
I'm not either. But let's just say this. Whether it negatively or positively is going to impact it, it is impacting it nonetheless.
It's definitely changing it. Absolutely.
We've seen this year the change that it brought about. We're Aggies. We're proud of it. And I'm not ashamed to say that the NIL deal is probably why we had the best recruiting class.
Benefiting us.
Because A&M has a lot of money, a lot of rich donors. See, before these players were the only form of payment they were getting was scholarship money from the school. That was it. Now, donors, companies, anybody can come in and be like, listen, I want to sign you to a commercial deal. I want you to model for me. And these players are making ridiculous amounts of money now. So it's like, before you had to wait till the pros to make money. Now you can make money just being in college. And the thinking was, and the reason why they made the NIL deal was players were like, these colleges, that most of their, income, like Bama, most of their revenue comes from football, TV deals, sponsorship, stuff like that. If I'm bringing you all this money, why do I not get a part of it? So I can understand the players thinking here.
I was going to say that is an understandable side to take because obviously the NCAA, that's a $1 billion corporation. They bring in all this money. And the reason why it's so popular is because of the players themselves. And so they're feeling like they deserve a cut or whatever of the paycheck. And so I can understand how people would feel that way.
Based on that viewpoint, I'm kind of like, I can see both sides. I'm like, with the players, I wouldn't want to do work and that benefits somebody else and not like also benefit from it, you know?
Yeah.
So I can understand that, but the reason a lot of people don't like the NIL is because now schools that weren't good before are going to get better because they have a lot of money. Schools that also were really good before don't have as much money, and so they're going to get worse. I'll use Michigan as an example. Michigan didn't care about the NIL deal this year. Michigan was like, oh, people are going to come play for us because we're Michigan. You know, it's the namesake. We've always been a top like 10 college football team. You know, we're very historic. Mm-hmm. And they were like, they're just going to come to us because we're Michigan. Well, they had a terrible recruiting class this year because the first question out of most players' mouths is, how much money am I going to make? What are you willing to pay me, or your donors willing to pay me to come to your school? And it was the same thing with Nick Saban.
We've talked about this before off air, obviously, but I think it would do it justice to bring it up in public. It was that basically we think that Nick Saban is on his way out and Bama is slowly going to become less of a powerhouse. Obviously, I think for the next couple years, I would say for the next 5 years or so, they'll still be the same.
Once the recruits kind of filter out.
Powerhouse that they've always been. But the thing before was you came to Alabama because of Nick Saban. Now you're going where you can make the most money. For example, like USC is becoming a powerhouse.
Yeah.
So is UCLA, because those are,
LA
UCLA, because that is like a rich place. And then same as Texas A&M. That's how we're getting so many recruits, is because we're able to give them these deals. And obviously Saban kind of attacked Jimbo earlier
because he was jealous. I will say on this show, we're not huge Saban fans because we are Aggies. We're huge Jimbo fans. And one of the things that I can give Jimbo a lot of props for is because, and this is not us, this has been multiple sources have come out and said this. Nick Saban was mad because he goes to these players' houses to recruit, right? Before it was like, oh, Nick Saban wants me to play on his team. Like, it's the Nick Saban. He's won 6 championships. Of course I want to go play for Nick Saban. Well, now there's more of an incentive to make money. So instead of Nick Saban showing up and they're like, oh, it's Nick Saban, now they're like, how much money are you going to pay me? And Nick Saban's like,
what can I get? Yeah.
Yeah, Nick Saban's like, what do you mean how much money? I'll give you a championship. I'm Nick Saban. Like, he has so much pride, and he should, from winning. He should have a lot of pride from being a great coach. Like, there's no bashing how good of a coach he is.
And it's just that traditional mindset too that I think will eventually be his downfall, because
you have to adapt with the game.
I don't think he's ever going to be able to accept the way that the game is changing to where you have to be able to offer your players something more than just the game and a championship.
Here's his best friend, Bill Belichick, is finding the same thing where he can't adapt with the game either. He's such a defensive guy, and now the league is such an offensive league. He wants to stay defense, and he's having a hard time realizing you're not going to win like that anymore. I think Saban's going to go through the same thing where he's going to still try to recruit based on him, basically his name, image, and likeness, instead of the player's name, image, and likeness. And it's going to end up costing him. Jimbo, on the other hand, is a great coach, but he recognized this is how I can make my team better.
Yeah, this is a way for A&M to step it up and become a very good college football program, is because he understands that he has a lot of money and a lot of things to offer these players that they're not going to get on a lot of other places. And so he's using that, like we've said, to his advantage.
Whenever the Jimbo Saban beef came out, it was Saban accusing Jimbo of buying all his players.
Well, that's what you do nowadays.
And he did. And Jimbo came out and said, nothing I did was illegal, because it's not. It's legal now, and Jimbo took advantage of it. And obviously it benefited Texas A&M greatly with the #1 recruiting class, and hopefully will continue to do so. But I just think the name, image, and likeness deal, you're just going to see schools like USC slowly and UCLA slowly just start to rise from the ashes, because they've been bad for so long. Like, they have tons of donors, especially USC. They're already, with Lincoln Riley, they're already getting tons of recruits. And then Texas A&M, like, there are these schools that weren't good for a while. They're going to start getting good just based on how much money they make. Not saying that the powerhouse, like OU and Bama, will probably always be around for the most part. I would say
Yeah.
they won't be. I don't think Bama will be as amazing.
The same level of,
but they'll be around
excellence
because, you
they
know,
have
for
been.
for a long time they probably will get players just based on their name.
yeah.
I do think I agree with you. We did talk about this off air. I would not be surprised to see Saban retire in 3 or 4 years.
I think
Not
it's
saying it
just
will happen, I
because
just wouldn't be
The
surprised.
game is changing,
And he's old.
and he can't accept that. I don't think.
And he has had a fantastic career. There's no shame in him retiring.
I agree.
But I don't think that he's wanting to keep. I don't think it's not that he can't. I just don't think he wants to keep.
He
up with
doesn't
this.
want to have to give his, like, he can't let go of his pride. I think that's the biggest thing. He can't
Yeah.
let go of his pride that
You get pride.
I'm one of the
by winning
greatest
a lot.
college coaches ever, and I have brought in all these championships, all these wins. I've been at the top of basically everything for the last, I don't even know how long he's been coaching, for the last X amount of years, and then now he's got to adapt to where he's got to give his players something more than
Yeah.
just that level of excellence.
And I think also I'm going to switch focuses just for a second onto another sport that is benefiting crazily from the NIL deal, and that's college basketball. Because college basketball, there's always been stuff. I know college football too, but college basketball, there's always been stuff going on, you know, where it's definitely like not allowed by the NCAA. But college basketball, the sport in general, like the NBA has become such a name, image, and likeness league where it's not about the teams anymore. It's about the player. And so college basketball is shifting to that. And so now you're seeing guys in college that can be signed for these shoe deals and for modeling and stuff like that. I saw a guy made $1.7 million off an NIL deal, college basketball player, modeling for like Express or something. So like,
I think also is that it's because there's so few college basketball
Right.
players because the rosters are so much smaller. So it allows those guys that play college basketball to make so much more money. Agreed.
Let me ask you, what schools do you think will benefit from this a lot?
Obviously, we've touched on it. I like the USC, those UC, like those rich schools, or I mean, not like rich areas of the
Yes,
United
yeah.
States. I could see possibly. I think maybe like places like Miami or some
Oh, yeah.
of those rich.
I agree.
Like southern places?
Especially the rich southern schools. Like A&M's going to be really good. I think LSU is the only Louisiana school that really anyone cares about. LSU's going to pop off.
Ole Miss probably.
I think
as well.
Ole Miss is Ole Miss is already benefiting from it. I think Florida will be pretty good because of the NIL deal. I think schools like we were saying that will go down. I think they will. Okay, also Ohio State, they'll stay good. They've taken advantage of the NIL deal. Schools that are going down, Michigan, I think Bama's not going to stay up top. I do think OU is going to take a hit because OU is the only school in Oklahoma that most people care about, but also how rich is Oklahoma? Like,
Not at
if
all.
we're being honest. So I don't think that OU is going to stay as good as they were. College basketball, I don't think that the schools that are normally good are going to change. I think they've already made so much money, and now they can just give it to the players. Like I think Duke, North Carolina, Kansas, the Blue Bloods, like I think they'll stay pretty good. But I think college football, you're going to see a change, and you're already seeing the conferences completely revamped. You're seeing schools come into the from the Big 12
Basically,
to the
all
SEC.
of the conferences are changing. Obviously, the big thing is the SEC, right? Like OU and Texas, they're coming in what is that,
20, 25.
25, I believe.
It could be earlier, but
I hope it's earlier.
I hope so too. I hope Texas comes into the SEC and we can play them like the old-fashioned rivalry game. We could just whoop them. We can whoop Arch Manning and wish he had gone to a different school. Make him wish he gone to a different school. But all biases aside, I think that also it is kind of cool. Side note that A&M is benefiting way more from the NIL deal than Texas is. A&M is so much more like donors, and the Aggie network, like the Aggie loyalty across the nation is like none other.
Yeah, I would agree.
You meet an Aggie,
there is nothing else. Like
you're instantly connected.
You show them that ring, that gold ring, and you're in. Basically.
You're like best friends for life.
Yeah.
It is so cool, which means A&M's making a lot of money, and you should come to A&M. But that's not why we're.
Well, it's
doing
also
this
the
episode.
loyalty of those people that graduate, like alumni, willing to come back and do stuff for the school.
Absolutely.
Like donate money and stuff like that, like boosters or whatever.
I just think that the NIL deal is going to change. Here's what we were talking about also off air yesterday is the NIL deal was put in place. They're like, basically all they did was come out and say players are now allowed to benefit off their name, image, and likeness. And that was it. So these NIL deals are going nuts. Players are making tons of money.
Have zero
It's going
rules,
crazy. That's
no
one of the
restrictions.
things. That's one of the things Saban was saying. He's like, y'all made this. You didn't put any rules in place. So obviously, like people are now abusing it. Like he was saying, Texas A&M took real advantage of it, which they did. They're paying players boatloads of money to come here, and I think that the NCAA will put.
I think eventually there's going to be some sort of cap.
Yes.
Like you see in like a salary cap.
Salary cap, I could see that.
Every other sport, I could totally see that being put in place
I just think
on
because
these
if
NIL
not,
deals.
if not, it's like baseball. If you're a rich team, you pay them whatever.
Mm-hmm.
If you're a poor team, and that's not good for the sport. Like we're already seeing with baseball, it's terrible.
Because
for
then
the sport.
it'll be like it is like for example, the Yankees are always good.
The Dodgers
right?
are always
the Dodgers are always good, and then you get like
sometimes you
Rangers,
get a Tampa Bay.
Or like the Marlins, or obviously we've seen the Diamondbacks make a couple runs. Like this is early 2000s, but for the most part, you have the same teams that are really really good every single year, and it kind of suffocates all the other poor ball clubs.
So to answer your question that you asked me at the very beginning of the show that I never really answered, I think that if rules and regulations are not put in place on the NIL deal, it will negatively impact the game of football, college football, because it's going to be like baseball. And baseball ratings they're just plummeting. They've been plummeting because nobody wants to watch, which also baseball has a lot more problems, but like nobody wants to watch. That's why the college football playoff is getting so boring, because it's the same 4 teams in it every year. Nobody wants to watch Bama and Clemson or Bama and Georgia battle it out every single year when you're not a Clemson, Bama, or Georgia fan. You know, it just gets boring.
Yeah.
And so I think that you're going to start seeing some tanking of views and ratings if you don't put a cap on this NIL deal. And I'm not saying don't have it. I do think the players should be able to benefit. Because it'll
eventually get to the point where it's the same 4 teams again. Obviously, it's just a different 4 than we see.
Yeah, it'll be USC, A&M,
right now.
something like that. But like, I just think that right now, it's positive for the players, and it's positive for the game of football, and it's positive for the NCAA in a lot of ways, because the NCAA, they haven't always been known as the greatest organization. They don't really care, basically like not caring about their employees, like the students. And so it's a good look for them that they finally let this happen. They're also still, nobody likes the NCAA for some reason, but
It's just because they're the man.
Yeah,
you're supposed to hate the man.
But it's good for the NCAA. It's good for the players right now.
I know,
but it won't stay good for long. If they don't
one
cap it.
thing that people who don't like the NIL, like the main problem they have with it is because these players are already getting free education, as well as they get all this insane merch. Like if you go to a D1 school, you get all this stuff. Everyone treats you
the
like
best facilities.
You're way above everyone else because everyone knows who you are, right?
You bring the school the most money.
Yeah, because you're essentially what makes that school so popular. Like we've said before, football. That's football for Alabama. That's why they're on the map, is because they have a powerhouse football team every single year.
Therefore, you get the best weight room, the best food, the best dorms, the best practice facility. You get everything the best because that's where all the money comes from, is you.
Yeah.
But now,
and people have a problem with that, but I don't know if I necessarily agree with those people, because you look at an average student at a random university compared to an athlete there, and the value on the athlete is way higher than on that regular student.
because I would say this, and this is, we're regular students. Like, this is not a shot at regular students, but let's say you're going to Texas A&M, right? You alone as a regular student, you're bringing the school, what, $25,000 a year? around, maybe something like that, 21.
Yeah.
In tuition, I'm just saying tuition. So you're paying the school about 21,000 tuition a year. If you're a football player for the school, you're bringing in the school probably just like if you average it out, divided by all the players, you're probably bringing in the school maybe like $1 million, $2 million like per player.
Yeah, and obviously,
so like you are more valuable to the school.
There
because
are people that just want to say that they're all students, and so they should all be like compensated the same. Basically, the players shouldn't get paid because they're all students, and it's not fair to the other. But like the thing is that a college football player is way more valuable than just a regular student.
If you have a business, do you pay every single employee the exact same?
No,
or do you pay the ones that do more, you promote them and you pay them more, and you pay the ones that don't do as much and they're not as good at their job, if you're not laying them off or firing them, like you're not paying them a whole lot.
Yeah.
So that's how business works. College football is a business. College is a business. The universities are businesses.
As a college student that does nothing, I don't get paid anything. Joseph does not get paid anything.
I don't get paid either.
That's because we bring very, very, I'm not going to say nothing. We bring very, very little to the table.
Students, I think regular students, like if I was to leave A&M, somebody would fill my spot. And they'd pay the same amount of tuition that I would.
Yeah, and it'd be like you never left,
but
and obviously nobody cares.
But 5-star athletes, they're very hard to find. Like they're and they don't always commit to your school. So you have to pay them to get them to come so you can make money that benefit the rest of the students. Like we get to go in the nice student center. Like, like money comes in and you have to have a way to bring it in. And
we
a lot of times it's football. We
technically benefit from all these players making all this money because that's makes
why we have a nice stadium.
So nice, and that's why the stadium is so big, and that's why the stadium is so nice and stuff like that, is because these players are bringing in so much money. So we do technically, if you look at it in turn, benefit from this as well.
I just think like it's not about being fair. It's about running a business, and that's how businesses.
And honestly,
run.
I do think that's a fair way to run it.
I think that's how it should be. And I'm not an athlete, so I'm not even like. If anything, I should be more on the student side. But like that's how businesses are run. You don't pay people that do nothing more or the same as somebody. Like you don't pay your vice president the same as you would like your interns. So
yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
That's kind of how that works.
The difference between a regular employee and like an executive or whatever.
Like, do you think the professors should all be making the same as Jimbo? No.
Absolutely.
Yeah, they're not bringing the school as much money as Jimbo is. So I mean, I think in conclusion for me, the NIL deal is positively going to benefit the game of football as long as they put some regulations on it.
What will make it better, yes, is if they put some sort of like
salary cap, basically. I guess salary
just
cap. A cap on it.
It's not a salary, but a cap on how much these players get paid. So I would agree that it is definitely changing the game, and it will be positive if they play it the right way and don't let it get out of hand.
Exactly. I agree too.
So, here's where we like to end our shows on Under Review. I have brought to you a quote. So, the beginning we talked about the Cowboys. So, I figured we would come full circle and end it with the Cowboys again.
As we should.
A Cowboy's great. We've mentioned him a few times on this podcast, but he just deserves to be mentioned again because when you're a legend, that's what you get, recognition.
Exactly.
Football is an incredible game. Sometimes it's so incredible, it's unbelievable. That was brought to you by Tom Landry.
The great. One of the greatest coaches in Cowboys history.
Yes, sir.
Mount Rushmore. We thank y'all for tuning in this week. I hope y'all enjoyed this episode. We're getting very close to being able to discuss some live football.
We are
very soon.
Incredibly close.
We're a week away from college football starting. We are 2 weeks away from the NFL. So we are hyped. Hopefully y'all are too. We're pumped to bring y'all some football. But in the meantime, keep listening to these episodes. We appreciate y'all's listens. Go like, comment, subscribe.
Have a grand Wednesday morning because that's when you're listening to it.
Exactly. Hopefully you listen as soon as it comes out at 5 in the morning Central Time. Thank y'all for tuning in this week. We'll see you next week on Under Review.